Thank you very much, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, with those 9 points from Sir Bill Jeffrey as learning from British experience, now the panel is open for your questions.
Mr. Chair, if I might just make one correction. I want to thank you for your introduction, but I think I heard you say at the end that I was the recipient of the Medal of Honor. I am not the recipient of the American Medal of Honor. There's an organization in the United States that stems back to the Revolution when we were slugging it out, sir, and their highest award is the Medal of Honor. It is in no way, shape, or form reflective of the actual military one. So, but thank you for the thought.
Can I? Okay, I'm Rear Admiral Kolambage from the Sri Lanka Navy. I think there is no doubt that the post-conflict rehabilitation successfully completed by the military. And we also heard about this word conflict resolution. And I believe the next step is really transforming this conflict to long-lasting peace. Now that the military has fought the war, won the war, done the post-conflict period, now how do we prevent re-radicalization of the youth? I would like to pose this question to the civilian members. Will it be the military again, or someone else should take on the responsibility of preventing the re-radicalization of the youth? Thank you.
Well, they're looking at me as if I know this answer. Let me suggest, it's a great question, it's an important question. And if you recall the slide at the very end where we discussed political will. This is as the military is. Military serves in a democracy, it serves the political will, and it serves the political masters who are making the policy decisions about what to do. So ultimately, the answer is, it is up to the political leadership, the properly elected leadership, to address the issue and to address it in a manner that is successful. Now, one would hope that the society of Sri Lanka, as any wonderful society is, has resources outside the military to address this, because it will not work, in my candid opinion, if the military has to keep stepping back in time and time again. Then, frankly, it calls to question the role of the citizen and the democracy. So I'm just sharing you with my own opinion. I can give you some very clear examples inside other nations where civilian agencies have stepped up immediately on the follow-on from the military success. That's what should be happening now. And then as it develops, as they develop their work, they have a series of programs. Those programs are best answered by individuals on my side, because they know these programs better than I. But I am quite certain the demarc between military and political leadership is one that is going to be tested, needs to be tested, should be tested now.
Well, I agree with Dr. Stone that this is what he would call the $64,000 question, actually, and it's a very difficult one to answer. What I found impressive and interesting about yesterday's sessions is that it brought home to me the extent to which the early tasks here, and it is still quite early, had to be the ones that were described. If you have a country that's covered in mines and with 300,000 people needing to be resettled, then these are the most urgent issues. But addressing these issues in themselves, I suspect, will not produce a permanent end to the conflict. And as Dr. Stone says, it's very much to be desired that the Army and the armed forces are not drawn in the way that they had been in the past. I suspect the answer to that lies at the political level and in some form of political process, which was why I focused my own remarks on our experience on a smaller scale of a political process. But it's the question I personally think is worth always asking is what are the conditions in which re-radicalization might happen if we're not careful? Because sometimes inadvertently these conditions can be created.
Can you hear me? I think the rehabilitation program is geared towards helping people to move away from radicalization. So if you look at the six-pronged model +1, those are the areas, if frustrated, if there are issues that can cause re-radicalization again. So people within civil society, if you look at the business community, the government, education systems, I believe that all these systems needs to incorporate elements that will prevent re-radicalization. So in essence, civil society, it has to be addressed through civil society and bodies within civil society. But certainly the upcoming re-radicalization effects, or if there are persons who are beginning to radicalize the community, I think those become security issues. And I believe that the country, the defense, the country should be looking at arresting those problems and managing it at that level. And I believe monitoring. General Douglas Stone referred to a system like a parole system where there is monitoring. I mean, if you take people within civil society, criminals who actually come out, there is a time of probation. There is a monitoring process. So all these systems are, I think, effective to prevent re-radicalization, and it will have to be shared, I believe. It will have to be shared depending on the level of threat that arises.
And to conclude, it's one of the lessons what we have highlighted during the first presentation, having a separate dedicated ministry who is quick to take decisions. And it's been already started. The Ministry of Rehabilitation is working on this same program, and there's a dedicated special aftercare program started with sort of loan schemes and looking after and the educational program. All these things are done by civilians. Of course, the military is there to coordinate and help them. And subsequent with the time span, the civilian will take the leadership and the progress will go on. And General Mehta, sir, you have your question.
Lest people think that I've been paid to ask questions during the seminar. Let me disabuse you of that impression, because for me it's been a tremendous learning process. But let me also share an idea with you that was mentioned by my friend here sitting next to me, that no two examples are equal or templatable. And I think I must point out here that the Sri Lanka model, both in the defeat of terrorism and I would suspect, though I'm not an expert in this, that in the at least the 2 hours that we are discussing now are not replicable. Let me explain this, if you permit, Chair, that I don't believe that in this day and age, a military which is meant to create conditions for a political solution will actually achieve a military solution. And the political solution will fade into the background. So the point I make is that the destruction of the terrorist group or the insurgent groups is not achievable anymore in this day and age. So what the Sri Lankan army has been able to do is remarkable by all accounts, but it has attracted international opprobrium. Nobody can deny that, and I don't think we should hesitate to say so. Because if we are here, and if the international community is here to learn lessons, that what General Stone called the kinetic use of force, in an internal conflict, will be extremely, extremely difficult, no matter how deadly your adversary or your enemy. So that's the first point, that you will not be able to achieve what made rehabilitation and reintegration so easy, because you are actually in a post-conflict situation. And the situations that General Stone talks about are situations which are of ongoing conflict. You're talking of Iraq, you're talking of Afghanistan. And those are not internal conflicts. Those are conflicts which the Pakistani Defense Secretary referred to as foreign occupation. So we have to make that distinction, and unless we make that distinction, we are liable to not take the right lesson. And I just thought I'll make one other point which occurred to me, because we are talking here about re-radicalization of the de-radicalized. What about the unradicalized? I mean, there are so unless what Sir Jeffries said, that unless you have a discernible and implementable, and the unradicalized must see that this process, political process, is likely to be implemented and result in a fair and just political resolution of the problem. I think the temptation for the unradicalized to be radicalized is there.
So thank you very much for your thought-provoking comments. I'm sure Dr. Stone will have something about it.
Was there a question in there? No, I didn't think so. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't answering something. I think that's a wonderful statement. I enjoyed listening to him. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think it's time, and it concludes the second session. And may I request, we'll give a round of applause to the eminent panel.